You're on a path in the woods, and at the end of that path is a cabin. And in the basement of that cabin is a princess. You're here to slay her.
Easy peasy lemon.
Slay the Princess is a psychological adventure visual novel developed by Black Tabby Games, with the main game mechanic being the best part of a game similar in its style, The Walking Dead: decisions. So many decisions all around the namesake of the game, the princess herself. The princess voiced very well, if I might add, by Nicole Goodnight, where she does a marvelous job at distinguishing the many, and I mean many different princesses we will meet in our journey. But let's actually start our journey, shall we? Chapter 1: The Hero and the Princess.
You're on a path in the woods, and at the end
Opening, we are on a path leading to the cabin, and we meet the narrator, voiced by Jonathan Sims, and he also does an amazing job voicing the many internal voices that we will meet along the way, which embody our inner conflicts. And there is a good amount of them, and they're all really fun in my opinion, with us being instructed to go to the cabin. But instantly, we can make a decision here. We can go straight to the cabin, we can ask a good few questions about where we are, who the narrator is, why do we need to kill the princess, or who are we? But we can also go against the grain and just leave. There is no wrong answer in this game. Every answer you give will result in a different outcome. It makes the game super fun to replay, and is one of the main reasons I actually was interested in this game, because when I was looking up information about this game, I discovered there was this many possibilities for your playthrough. That is an insane number. This is one of the most complex choice-driven games, and there is actually a lot of choices here which actually do impact the game in general. So let's go into what I did first. First, I entered the cabin. Inside, there is a blade on the desk. I take the blade and then head down the stairs to the basement.
Who's there?
she sounds dangerous.
Instantly, we get an idea of the princess's character. She sounds snarky, sarcastic, but if you choose not to take the blade, you get a very different character in general.
Is someone there?
It's hypnotizing. It's the kind of voice you only have to hear once to remember it for the rest of your life. Don't let it fool you. It's all part of the manipulation. How many times do I have to...
Wait, really? You're here to rescue me? I was starting to think I'd be stuck down here forever. Come downstairs. I want to see the face of my rescuer.
You walk down the stairs and lock eyes with the princess. There's a heavy chain around her wrist, binding her to the far wall of the basement.
She sounds more welcoming, more of a warm character, and she sounds more happy that someone's even there in the first place. This decision, which to most people playing the game blind wouldn't understand the actual consequences of the action itself, is something that this game does masterfully. A big issue I have with a lot of choice-based games like this in the style of Telltale games is they often don't make the choices that say, mysterious enough. You don't understand that there is a potential for completely unintended consequences for very small actions, and even the big actions, it often comes down to here is the normal good person choice and here is the evil bad person choice, which basically means are you either going the good run or the bad run. That's all it normally is when these decision-based games come out, and it's always something I hate about them. This whole concept of making the choices in choice-based games having to make you think about what you could possibly happen is what Telltale did so well when they made The Walking Dead Season 1, but they lost that over the years as they kept making these games over and over again, and it's why these games in this style financially and critically fail. They don't understand what made them so fun. Yes, the story was a big part of it, but it was the choices at the end of the day, the choices that we didn't understand the consequences that they could potentially have, and that they were, in my eyes, often more mysterious than they let on. And this is the exact reason Slay the Princess is loved by so many people now. It's because its choices, while seeming small, have massive consequences in the way the game plays out and the potential choices you can make. The first choice with the knife completely cuts you off from certain routes. That's amazing in my eyes because it makes the game so interesting to come back to and replay and try different things out. But let's actually take a step back and analyze some of the key players that we have met already in the game, starting with the princess herself. I hope the two examples I have given here demonstrate a key point of this game, and that's who do you trust? It's very clear that every character we meet in the game at times can be and will be lying, or putting on different masks to play the situation in a different way. The princess herself has portrayed to us two separate masks, a damsel in distress mask and a snarky mask. Two completely different personalities, which actually makes it very hard to nail down her personality, and it's only towards the end when her, I think, true self actually comes out. But it makes you question every single character you meet and whether or not they can be trusted and who you should put your faith in.
She's beautiful. How could someone like this be a threat to anyone?
The voice of the hero commenting on the princess's appearance is very much meant to play on the halo effect in psychology. The halo effect is an unconscious bias that everyone has where you create an unjustified preconception of a person based on their appearance, and you do it all the time. Some of the most common ones are people that you find attractive, you think are going to be nicer to you, are going to be kinder to you, or are going to be more likely to talk to you. And people that you find scary and aggressive looking, you think they'll be unsociable, angry, or just mean. It is something we all do, and it leads to some people being unfairly treated just because of how they look. Not only in racism, discrimination, and the other things like that, but also it means that people are less willing to actually engage with them and even get to know them because of said appearance. Even the idea of a title, princess, adds another layer to this halo effect. It gives her a more prestigious title and it makes her seem more favorable and someone that you'd want to know, because royalty is often seen as perfect and is often displayed as perfect in a lot of media, but also in our world. It is no secret that within history, many of the royalty that have survived, let's say, have had their names basically scrubbed off of all the dirt they did in the past to make them seem more glorious, more amicable to the general population. I mean, just look at the current royal family here in the UK. A few of them are definitely some very bad sinners, and all of them have some dirt on them that I'm sure that they have definitely kept hidden from the public eye. But it just adds another layer to this halo effect, and it makes you obviously question what the narrator is saying to you, because how could this woman who doesn't look like she has any physical strength in herself, she looks very dainty would be the word I would use. So how would she have the power to destroy the world if we can't physically see it? It's obviously an unjustified preconception that we just made up because we don't know who she is to start with. We just don't.
I am begging you to stay focused. There's a lot riding on you here.
And the narrator obviously makes this situation seem a lot more dire than currently it is. He is obviously trying to indicate to us that the world will end if we do not kill her. He is obviously trying to act as an authority figure. So why do we not listen to him? Why do we question him so quickly? Now, the first thing you might ask is, hey, he hasn't given us any evidence for the fact that he's trying to betray. But I counterpoint with this note that he gave us if you ask him the right questions. Only kidding. He never gives us any sort of evidence or anything akin to that. So why would anyone listen to him? Well, because he tries to portray himself as an authority figure. In life, it is more likely that you are influenced by an individual that you view as an authority figure. The way that the narrator speaks, he sounds very sure of himself. He sounds like he understands the world more than we do, as we just entered it. So we obviously will naturally perceive him as an authority figure, and this leads into authority bias in psychology. Authority bias is the concept of believing a person's views or words or anything because you perceive them as a more credible source of information or a more knowledgeable on the situation at hand. The narrator's way of speaking, he sounds very sure of himself. He seems that he knows more than he's telling us, so we obviously feel like he is a good authority on the subject. However, we still then question him, so why is this? If he's perceived as an authority figure, then why do we go against his words? Why do we try to experiment? Why do we try to talk to the princess? Why do we not kill her straight away? Well, it's because of his proximity to us. We don't physically see the narrator, so we don't obviously get that halo effect, or we don't get that presence of him. There is a very famous study that looked into proximity of the authority bias, which was done by Milgram with his shock experiment. Milgram's shock experiment is a very interesting experiment, and it shows the effect that the authority bias can have on people. So in the shock experiment, they obviously had someone who was shocking another participant who was not actually being shocked, but they were tricking the original participant to believe that they were actually hurting someone. Now, they found that 65% of participants went all the way to the max voltage to shock another person because of that perceived authority figure. So, when they did the same experiment but did the absent experimenter condition, they found that participants were often more resistant. They did not follow the orders from the authority figure. And basically, once they called in and told them what to do by telephone, the obedience rate fell to 20.5%, a 45% drop in obedience, which obviously displays why we don't actually listen to the narrator, because he's not physically there, we don't obey him as easily. Obviously, correlation does not equal causation, so we can't say that, but it's very clear that the physical absence of this authority figure allows us to think more freely and believe that we're able to act more freely without being punished for it. It's a very smart way to implement and encourage the player to actually make the decisions that they want to and not feel pressured into making a very specific decision, because I believe if the narrator was a physical character, it would pressure players more into picking a certain option.
Against your better judgment, you step forward to speak with the princess face to face, unarmed.
Now actually approaching the princess, we can now have a bit of a chinwag with her, and it allows us to ask quite a few interesting questions about who she is. Does she know that she's going to destroy the world? Does she want to destroy the world? What does she want? And it also allows us to decide if we want to save her, leave her, or kill her.
Oh, you have to be kidding me.
Now I chose to help her, much to the dismay of the narrator, and investigating the chains, it's apparent we cannot get her out without either unlocking the chain itself or cutting her arm off, but I'm sure she wouldn't want that.
That would be fine. I can lose an arm.
Oh, okay, a bit odd. But hey, some people get so desperate that they're willing to cut their limbs off, so maybe she's been put in this situation for so long, she just wants to get out of there no matter what.
You attempt to make your way out of the basement, but the door at the top of the stairs slams shut. You hear the click of a lock sliding into place.
The narrator now shows his true intentions. He has some level of control over the world itself, and he is very intent on the princess dying. Him locking us in the basement to prevent us from saving her very clearly shows his attitude towards the princess. He wants her dead now. He cannot wait any longer, and he is now forcing us to do it. So we go back down the stairs to the basement, and the princess says that we have also been locked in the basement, showing that she was also trapped by another external force akin to the narrator here. Now, approaching the princess, we decide that the only way we can actually free her is by cutting her arm off. But instead of being met with piercing screams of someone suffering due to losing their limb, it is silent. She shows no semblance of pain or discomfort, and she removes her arm as if it was a bit of dust on her shoulder, with no care in the world and just discarding it. With the princess now free from her bindings, we now try to head out of the basement, heading up the stairs, but the narrator has another plan for us.
No, we won't have any of that. The stakes are too high. You can't just let her escape into the world. No, I just can't let her escape into the world. As the princess approaches the bottom stair, your body steps forward.
He now takes control of our body, trying to force us to stab the princess to kill her. However, we can resist, and I do. I resist the first attempt at killing the princess, and we warn her with her dodging out of the way, as she notices within our eyes that we are having a conflict within ourselves.
Best to help me, aren't you? I can see the conflict in your eyes.
She very clearly sees that we do not want to attack her, but something is making us attack her. Now resisting even more and causing our body to lock up, she takes the blade from our hands and cuts our throat, ending our life. As we drift off into eternal darkness, we now enter.
And you die. I hope it was worth it.
Chapter 2. The Prisoner.
You're on a path in the woods. And at the end of that path...
Wait, didn't we just do this? How are we alive now? Why are we back here? We have now returned to the beginning in the forest, with the narrator now doing the exact same lines that we had at the beginning, but now we can comment on deja vu.
Terrible sense of deja vu. No, you don't have that. This is the first time either of us have been here.
Doing the same thing again and already knowing what's happening, or saying that we already died.
You're back here. I'm assuming you died, which probably only happened because you didn't listen to me.
But the narrator is clueless about this and believes that we're basically lying. And he just tells us that we need to proceed to the cabin. So we do, and going towards the cabin and entering it, the cabin has changed. While layout is the same, it visually looks completely different. The wooden log cabin has turned into a bricked and barred cabin resembling a prison that you would see in olden castles, almost linking it to the title of the chapter, The Prisoner. The blade lays again on the table, and the wall now has a mirror on it, which the narrator suspiciously leaves out of his description. Approaching the mirror, the narrator tells us that we're being stupid and we're just looking at a wall, but reaching our hand out to touch the mirror, it disappears and only a brick wall is left there. This is something that the narrator cannot see, but it is something that we should definitely keep our eye on. The mirror is something that obviously is being indicated of high importance to us in understanding this world. Before heading down to the basement again, I grab the blade again and now headed down, and we meet the princess again.
You walk down the stairs and lock eyes with the princess. She looks up at you, the heavy collar around her neck clanking loudly as she moves, the chains binding both her wrists to the far wall, joining the metallic chorus as she adjusts her hands in her lap.
But this time, she is chained up even more, with now 2 chains on each arm and a chain around her neck, obviously showing us that what we did before has now changed. We can no longer do the same approach that we did last time, and we must approach the situation in a different method. Now, this obviously has a couple routes out of it. The chain on the right, which is suspiciously lacking a limb, we can approach, and if we do, it attaches to us, and it results in a completely different ending from the one that I chose here. Talking to the princess, she basically goes on, and eventually she gets into the point of the knife, and she asks us to give it to her, but the narrator very much does not want us to give it to her.
Slide it over.
No, absolutely not.
You tried this last time.
Oh, I remember. She killed us, which, by your estimation, ended...
Oh, Rory, tried to take over, buddy.
Exactly. If I were you, I wouldn't be too keen on repeating your mistake. Hell, we could even force your hand and do it ourselves. I'm not afraid of dying again. Are you? A little? I think you got your point across. Fine.
However, I trusted her, and I gave her the knife, and she cut her own head off.
You hear a snap. There's an uneasy silence. She remains motionless for a long moment, her twitching eye the only movement in the room, until at last it stops in an unsettling half-wink. Her head twists slowly to the side, flopping to her shoulder, and her neck opens. The remaining tissue is not enough to hold the weight of her severed head. It stretches and tears until finally it falls to the floor, completely free. It bounces a few times before rolling to a stop at your feet.
Now, the princess did not tell us her plan, and this might just seem like she just wanted to kill herself, but the princess wants to escape by any means necessary. So, I believe that potentially she was still alive. Her not showing any pain of cutting her own arm off, what is to say that her cutting her head off will be anything dangerous to her? So, I picked the head up.
Did you see that? I could have sworn she moved.
She didn't. She's dead. But what if she's not? Are you listening to yourself? Do I need to explain to you why decapitation is lethal? The door to your bountiful reward is right in front of you. All you have to do is open it. You open the cabin door, ready to return to a world saved from certain doom. Only, a world saved from certain doom isn't what you find. Instead, what you find is... Wait, no, that's not right.
Well played.
And leaving, the narrator is now scared. He knows something has gone wrong and his plan has gone awry, and the princess reveals that she is indeed still alive.
Over? Is he gone?
With the narrator now no longer speaking and disappearing, the world is slowly engulfed by an abyss. The princess also comments on a coldness and is then engulfed by a bunch of arms. And slowly, the light of the world is fully engulfed by the abyss, and the mirror appears in front of us. The voice of the hero also comments that when the narrator is gone, it must mean that the world ended, and that the princess escaping her captivity does mean the world will end. Now, actually trying to approach the mirror, the voice of the hero is terrified of it. He does not want us to proceed to look into it, but it is our only option. Proceeding towards it, there is nothing in the mirror, but gazing into it, we then start to see our own reflection. We now cut to another scene in the abyss and proceed to the cabin, but at the cabin, in its place, is the princess, or what looks to be the princess.
Something finds me in the long quiet and brings me the gift of a fragile vessel. I am solitary lights in an empty city. What are you? Thoughts without connections, a dim and nascent network. I wish to be more. I think that you are like me. We are oceans, reduced to shallow creeks.
Now, the princess here comments that we are in the long quiet, and that we are oceans reduced to shallow creeks, beings who are not at their full potential. She also comments that we brought her a fragile vessel, the princess, and she's taken over her body, which is reflected in her appearance, mirroring the princess that we were just engaging with. And this happens with all the other princesses in the game. Asking this being if the world has ended, she comments saying that the world cannot end if we still are in it, meaning that technically no, the world has not ended. Now, actually asking if she is the princess herself, she just states that she is a part of her, but she is also a part of the princess as well. So both of them are separate beings, but need each other to exist. Asking her what happens now, she tells us that we need to find her more vessels. We need to bring her more princesses to fulfill her and enable her to be strong enough to pull all the other princesses in towards her to become whole again. And there's only one way she can do this, which is by killing us and sending us to a different world, kind of akin to what happened between chapter 1 and 2. So we either agree to this or we try to do something else, but even trying to attack her or kill ourselves, it doesn't do anything. Now, when she mentions this to us, we can now answer a few more follow-up questions, asking if she's scared if we can find a way to actually kill this entity, but she states that she has not lived. She doesn't understand what it means to live, meaning she cannot die. If someone is not born and is alive, they cannot die, which means this being is above life and death. It must represent something above the mortal plane itself. Now, to ask her about destroying the princess, she says that it cannot be done. To destroy something, it is to merely remold it, to reshape it. And this kind of ties into the idea of energy in the universe. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transferred or changed. So, in a way, this being cannot be destroyed itself, but it can be changed due to our actions, which obviously is going to link into the main theme of the game, which is your actions obviously have consequences. Now, agreeing to go back, she now tells us that the princess we rescued asks that we remember her, but we will not. Everything goes dark and you die. Chapter 1, The Hero and the Princess. The game now loops again, and we return to the first chapter, and this is where the game does its loop. The game consists of 5 loops, and within them 5 loops you will meet 5 different princesses that you will bring to this being. Now, I could go over the 5 loops that I did, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to go over each of the princesses you can meet and what they represent and why they turn into what they do, mainly because of your actions as a player, or inactions in some ways. And also, I'll go over all the other voices that we can get in our head. Within Slay the Princess, there are 23 unique princesses that you can see after the first form. So technically there's 24, and then as well as this shifting mound that brings up to 25, and then you've got a couple of other forms which brings up to around 27, I think, but I'm going to stick at 23 because they are sort of the main ones that I'm going to cover now. So let's break down each one and sort of explain them a little bit. I won't go into full detail and I will not be able to cover all of their unique dialogue options and everything, but I'll kind of break down their character a little bit and how you get to them.
Is that another challenger? Finally. It's been ages since I've had a good fight.
The adversary. To get this princess in chapter 1, you must take the blade, but talk to the princess first, and then try to kill her. And even when the two of you start fighting, you must never give up the fight, resulting in the pair of you killing each other. Now returning in chapter 2, the princess is now ready to fight. The adversary desires a good scrap, and she does not care about being free from the cabin. All she wants to do is get in the ring and do a little bit of that 1-2. In this form, she takes on a very different appearance. She is much taller and appears more demonic. It's not a bad thing. She looks more akin to something like Karlach from Baldur's Gate 3, so to some of you guys out there, that is probably a benefit. Now from this form, she can turn into 2 more forms, or she can go straight to the shifting mound, depending on what you pick to do with her. But if you reach chapter 3 for any of her forms, it distorts her in a drastic fashion to the traits you yourself portray to her. The adversary very much was the trait of conflict, that battle that you showed towards her. Even though you speak to her, you still chose violence, and that's all she will show to you now. Now, if you follow the adversary and put up a poor fight or run away, she becomes
Little bird, where do you think you're going?
the Eye of the Needle, a being with even more dramatic demonic features, and she very much desires that meaningful fight with you because she didn't get it last time. Almost as if all she knows how to do is fight, and it's all she wants to do. And probably it's all she has been shown because we are the only person that has actually seen her. I wonder if this means that every other appearance will mimic the emotions and traits that we show towards her. It will change her to fully embody that trait. Now, we can either be beaten to death or bait her outside, and that will then make her merge with the shifting mound to end this chapter. But what if we deny the adversary a fair and honest fight? What if we trick her in a way? Well, she becomes
No, No more words. There is only the truth of violence left between us.
The Fury, becoming, yeah, that ain't a good look. She should probably get that checked out. She no longer has skin on her body, it's become her clothes. She's just bare muscle and bones, and she gains godlike powers over our flesh, unwinding and peeling our skin off, even manipulating the atoms themselves to destroy us completely. Now, depending on what voice you have obtained up to this point, it will determine how you confront her, with my favourite, the voice of the stubborn, leading you to fight her over and over and over and over again for God knows how long, with you being torn apart constantly.
It doesn't matter. I refuse to go out any way that isn't kicking and screaming.
But eventually you will kill her and overcome her, and she is also then taken by the shifting mound. But if the player does not believe that they can fight her, they will die there and then.
Is that a guest I hear? Don't linger on the stairs. Come down and witness me.
The Tower, a being with a goddess-like appearance. She is arrogant and thinks highly of herself, and she wants us to bend down to her and worship her. She thinks so highly of herself that even the act of us injuring her, or even standing up against her, dumbfounds her and confuses that we're even capable of doing that. To achieve this form, you do the exact same thing as the adversary, but instead of you keep fighting, you give up halfway through the fight. From this form, she can then become the Fury, just as I mentioned, but she can also become the Apotheosis if you fight her and lose when she's the Tower, believing she is truly leagues and bounds above you, with you being nothing but a bug to her. Like, literally, she is very tall in this form. She now believes she has unlimited power, but she still wants us by her side for some reason. If we deny her this, she burns us so badly, the voices in our head feel it.
The Inferno incinerates everything that is you. And with it... No, that's not right. Why is it hot? I'm not supposed to be able to feel anything. Oh no. Oh no. No!
But if you steal your resolve, you can kill her.
I can smell you.
The beast, and yeah, it's a literal beast. This is achieved if you don't take the blade, talk to her and try to help her, and when she starts to chew her way out, you then attack her when the knife falls down the stairs. And this turns her into a feral beast. Literally, this woman starts biting chunks out of us, even biting her own arm off just to fight us when we try to kill her. And when we return in chapter 2, she has gone full feral, and we either have to let her escape the cabin or just kill her there and then with the blade. From the beast, she can become the den, where she has become a full-on animal. She was just a bit feral before, think a human that wasn't sort of in society, but now she's just a full-on animal. Speech is a thing of the past for her, and all she wants to do is hunt us. Next is...
Is that a visitor I hear? Please, come downstairs. It's been a while since I've had company.
the prisoner, which I showed at the beginning in my chapter 2. Now, if you didn't take her head outside, she becomes the cage.
Look at you scurry, as if anything you do is going to change the outcome. Don't you get it? This is all the same.
The separated head now is locked in a cage itself, showing her plan did not work and she was still alive. Interestingly, her body is no longer under her control. It is another entity in itself. She believes there is no way out for her anymore. She is trapped in a vicious cycle in which she will be trapped forever and alone, with no one who is willing to help her, with it mirroring us not being able to help her in any way, shape or form, or not taking the initiative to help her in any way, shape or form. But you can help her escape by taking her outside, or she can die again somehow. But what if you kill the prisoner? Well, returning to the cabin in chapter 3, the player finds her body floating in a shallow puddle, and she has become the Grey.
Bold of you to come back here after what you did.
She berates the player for leaving her for dead, and she then causes a flood in which she drags the player down, trying to drown him. But before we die by drowning, the Long Quiet claims the world and the princess is taken by the shifting mound. Now the Grey can have a different form, the burned form. And this form starts with the damsel.
It's you, my dashing hero. I was so worried you wouldn't come back.
This form is achieved by doing everything in your power to not harm her in the first chapter, and even resisting when you are forced to pick up the blade and try stab her. Now the damsel is very friendly towards you, and the whole chapter plays out like a fairy tale, with everything going exactly as you want. Even her hand slips out of the cuffs, and she only wants to make us happy, and when asking what she wants, she becomes more and more simplified. This doesn't have a combat engagement unless you choose to kill her, which turns her into the Grey burnt version. It's honestly just really easy just to walk out the cabin and achieve a better ending for this princess.
Finally, somebody! Quick, get me out of these chains. We're not safe here.
Next up is the Razor. This form is encountered if you immediately kill the princess upon meeting her, but you don't walk away. You confirm the kill, you double check, and this is when she does a little bit of a sneak attack. She reveals a hidden blade and stabs you with it, killing you. Now, why is she called the Razor? Well, when you meet her in chapter 2, she has razors beneath her skin.
So, does that mean you regret what you've done? Are you here to apologize and make nice? Beg for absolution, maybe?
Next is the Spectre. Basically, walk in, kill her straight away, walk away, receive the happy ending. Yes, the happy ending. An ending of eternal bliss gifted to us by the narrator. Over the course of eternity, the princess's corpse decays, and when we return, it is nothing but a skeleton. Eventually, the player bored of this eternal nothing takes the blade and kills himself. And entering the cabin in chapter 2, she is still dead. Oh wait, it's ghost time. Yes, she became a ghostly figure and greets us in a playful manner despite our transgressions last time we met. She doesn't hate us, but she doesn't forgive us for what we did. All she wants from us is to help her leave the cabin. Now there is 2 forms she can take at this point. First is the Wraith.
You killed me last time, and that was after you tried to lock me away forever. I was so close to freedom, but then you took my body away from me.
Basically be hostile to the Spectre, and she becomes an angry ghost, typical Paranormal Activity style ghost, just a dick, or we let her possess us and then try to kill ourselves with her being inside of us, which results in the 2 of you becoming closer than ever. Literally. With her then being reborn, but us still being stuck within her body. Now we can see from her point of view how the events of the game play out. We see what our body looks like, this big crow-like appearance, or corvid. And it gets very interesting once our body starts to speak, as it is voiced by the narrator. This was honestly such a cool route to play through when I first found it, because it was just full of twists and turns, and it was all good fun all the way along. Now the Wraith can also come from
I wonder how many times I'll get to play with you before you break.
the Nightmare, which you can get when you enter the basement, but then just leave her to rot there. You don't even kill her or help her or anything. You just leave. And she hates us for this. And this has filled her with hatred, and she just makes every waking moment when we are around her a living nightmare. You kind of see the point there. Now, in this form, she can then turn into the Moment of Clarity, an even more ghostly being, which we find this once the Nightmare removes her mask, revealing her true self. And next up is
Something nasty finds itself on my stairs. Come on down. Don't be scared. I probably won't bite.
Oh no, she became a furry. This one, you'll basically lie to her about being there to save her, and then hiding your blade, you'll try to betray her. This betrayal becomes hatred on her end and distrust, and in this chapter, she became quite the mischievous individual, backstabbing us when we try to lead her out of the basement, or trapping us in the basement, or just straight up scrapping with us. She very much takes on the personality of her feline appearance, doing things for no real reasons other than spite. From this form, she can become the Thorn, and this form forms because of the guilt she feels for betraying the player, as you, the player, showed her some level of trust and she just spat in the face of it. Tired of all the pain that they have inflicted upon one another, she is willing to attempt to stop the cycle of hatred and pain that you both are causing of each other, and you can decide what you want to do about it. But be warned, the Thorns are not there just for show. Also from the Witch, she can become the Wild, with her and the player merging, becoming the environment itself. From the Witch, you must try to abandon her in the basement, in which she will then control the roots itself and crush the cabin and the basement, suffocating the pair, and the 2 of you merge. You can also get here from the Beast, with you being eaten by the Beast, and then you stabbing the Beast from the inside, resulting in the Beast dying, but the 2 of you merging again into the Wild. A more unique appearance is the Stranger. Basically, just never go to the cabin, turn around and just walk away until the narrator gets sick of you and kills you, and it results in the Stranger having a very distinct look, let's say. This princess is a very unstable one, and it is meant to represent the unstable reality we created when we didn't make a choice itself. The act of not making a choice and going to the cabin creates so many possibilities within the princess that her entire personality becomes multiple personalities in one, which is then represented with the multiple heads. And last is the Happily Ever After princess, which is a root from the damsel. Basically, the voice of the smitten influences her to try to remain in the cabin forever with the player to stay happy forever. But you can't stay happy forever doing the same things over and over again, because everything gets boring eventually. You can kill her, or just leave, or ask what she actually wants to do, and grant her her one wish she only ever gives us, and that is to dance beneath the stars. And that is all the princesses summarized in a very simple way. Of course, there is much more to these complex characters than that, but I think it's more fun if you guys discover them yourself. I genuinely encourage you to go out and play this game yourself, because honestly, it's a lot of fun, just discovering the character of all the different princesses. Now, the voices are actually pretty simple. They join you when you demonstrate certain actions. Get overpowered by the princess, you get the voice of the broken. Choke out a victory by not accepting that you won, you get voice of the cheated when the princess kills you. Kill the princess and yourself, voice of the cold. Defy the expectations of both the voice of the hero and the narrator, you get the contrarian voice. Get killed by a predator, become the voice of the hunted. Take advantage of a situation, voice of the opportunist. Question everything around you, voice of the skeptic. Simp, you get the smitten voice. Will never stop fighting, no matter what, you get the voice of the stubborn. They are all the main characters, as they're all created from your actions. They are just fragments of a bigger whole. But what is that bigger whole? Who are we? What do we represent? Why do we keep getting reborn? Why are we able to kill something that seems to be on a level of a god? Now, this game has 9 endings, sort of. It's kind of hard to define some of these as endings, as the good ending is given to us by the narrator, but you can carry on from the good ending. It isn't really an ending, it's more akin to the escape ending from Fear and Hunger, a simple ending which is very unsatisfying. But the real endings can be achieved once you meet again with the shifting mound for the final time. But before that, we meet the narrator's true form. And he is a very interesting character who takes on a crow-like appearance. And we can ask him a limited number of questions, but he does give some great insight into the world itself.
Oh, I'm nothing like you. I'm an echo, likely one of many. Somebody made you after all, and I'm what's left of him. Not that I'm the only one who can make that claim. I'm sure you've met many others like me.
Asking the narrator if he's anything like us, he tells us that he is nothing like us. He is an echo. He is from the man that made us. This explains why the other narrators don't remember each other's memories. It's because they're all different echoes from the same man. They're not connected if they were the same person, but they're different remnants of him, kind of resembling the fractured mirror. They all make up the bigger whole, but they're all different parts of the mirror itself.
Of course. That is by both necessity and design. This construct you're in exists in many places at once. Anytime you failed, anytime you thought yourself dead, it would restart and shunt both your consciousness and hers into another world. But you'll be awake soon, and then it won't be able to work like that anymore.
He also gives us some more information about the world, that it's a place that he made that will restart no matter how many times we die. It is able to just repeat the cycle over and over again until he gets the desired outcome he wants, reinforcing that godlike figure, asking him what we are.
Or the long quiet, the god I made to rid the world of death.
We are the long quiet, that we are a god that he made to rid the world of death. So again, if something is a god, something on the power level of a god must be needed to create it. So it must mean he is a god, right? Well, no. The narrator does inform us that he was just a mortal man, but he had the potential to create godlike beings. Kind of akin to something like Klaus from Xenoblade. Just a mortal man, but he was able to create worlds and beings who are on the level of gods. Asking him why he wanted us to kill the princess.
Because among other things, she is death itself. To rid the world of suffering, to save untold trillions from being lost forever to the cosmic wind, she must be destroyed. And despite how far you've fallen, you will still have a chance to fulfill your purpose once I'm gone.
He tells us that she is death herself and he wants to rid the world of suffering, and this would save, obviously, a lot of people from dying. Going back on this point, asking if she contains death, what does that make her? He informs us that
she is the shifting mound, the ebb and flow, the capacity to change. She is transformation, or most of it. Her nature is why I had to die, for she becomes that which others perceive her to be. But an echo can't perceive things, not in the way that people can.
she is transformation and change itself. And it's in her nature to change so much because she changes to what others perceive her to be. So he killed himself so she cannot change what he perceived her as, death. Because a single stray thought will result in the world ending, and that is all he saw the princess as, death itself incarnate. Asking him if he wants us to destroy transformation, doesn't that mean that nothing will be able to be created?
When I broke the cycle, I made sure that the tear was rough. You carry a part of what should be her, and she carries a part of what should be you. Things won't be as they are now, but they won't be nothing either. Besides, anything is better than oblivion. In the end, Nobody wants to leave.
When he tore the two of us apart, because what we represent, the long quiet, comes after death, meaning we are a part of change itself, he left a part of the princess in us that we still could create a world in ourselves, but it wouldn't contain everything that she embodies, mainly death itself. We are able to create, but not to destroy. This explains why the princess wants to be with us so badly. We are two halves of the same coin. We are meant to be together, but we have been pulled apart for some reason, mainly the narrator's own selfishness. Now, the thought of what we perceive her as changing her, we ask the narrator, why don't we just think of her as something else?
Now you won't be able to will her into anything. You don't work the way a living being does. Not anymore. And as you were before, you couldn't be trusted with the knowledge of what she is. No one could be trusted with that knowledge. Intrusive thoughts have a way of creeping in and ruining everything. It's why I had to die.
But the narrator tells us that we cannot do this, as that is not how we work. We don't work the same way a living being does. Not anymore, as we've now been revealed all this information. He also tells us the reason he wasn't forthcoming with us was because he couldn't trust that our intrusive thoughts would not creep in and ruin the entire plan, and create her into a being that would just instantly destroy the world.
If you actually knew what she was from the start, if you knew her capabilities, a single intrusive thought could have instantly ended the entire world. Well, there's no reasoning with a god, even one you've woven into existence yourself. I've said my piece. It's like I said, I'm just an echo.
If you're wondering why she can't just destroy the world or leave the cabin when she's left there, it's because the people that locked her away believed that she could be locked away there, so she was locked away there. But when we go there, we believe that we can kill her, or we believe that we can get her out of there, or we believe that she's a monster, or we believe that she is a bit of an arsehole. All these things basically turn her into something else, but we always believe that she's trapped in there unless we believe that she can get out. It is such a cool way. I honestly love it. It is such a fun way to do it. But now, once you ask all your questions about the world and all the characters you want, the narrator now comes to an end, and that's the funny part. The narrator was scared of the end itself. He did not want to see either his life end or the world end, and he would try to remove the very force that enacts end itself, that being change. But nature has a funny way of always fixing itself. Life to flourish needs to also end. Life is a cycle. While it is technically infinite, beings within it will have to end at some point to redo the cycle. The Long Quiet is a very interesting title to give to the player. The player is capable of removing life and death, change everything from the world. But without change, you cannot have anything. Nothing will be created, nothing will be new, because you need change to create something new. So that's why he's called the Long Quiet, because he is nothing itself. He is the concept of nothingness. And that's why he is able to kill the princess. It's why he has to do it. He is literally nothing. That's the point. That's why it says in the mirror, you are nothing. But then this also links back to the narrator. The narrator himself wants to remove change from the world. It's why he never changes. It's why he always repeats himself over and over and over again. It's why we go through the same loop with him. But it's also why we are able to change. It's why we can gain new voices, because we have a part of the princess with us. We can merge with the princess to become something different. But the narrator himself does not change. He always repeats the same thing. He stagnates, and it causes him to die and become nothing. He's probably forgotten. It's a very interesting concept and fucking weird, I'll be honest. With the mirror breaking, the narrator is now completely gone forever, and now we approach the shifting mound for the final time. And now we can have our final conversation with the shifting mound, and depending on your dialogue choices, it will completely determine the ending you receive. So let's go over them real quick. To start with, if you just accept the shifting mound and take her hand and her offer, and don't confront who she is or say that you want her to die or that you don't want to be what she's offering, you join the shifting mound in an eternity of change, ascending and changing into the true god you both once were, finally being united. Now if you reject the offer she gives you, she starts to argue with you, but the voices return to help you and it starts to get a bit hairy, and with their help you enter the heart of the shifting mound, or the cabin itself. And here you have to make the same choice again, the exact same choice you made in chapter 1 with the pristine blade on the table. And you have obviously two choices here, take it or leave it. and they result in completely different endings depending on if you take it or not. Taking the blade, you now have the ability to kill the princess when you enter the basement. Killing her will result in the Dawn endings, and there are 2 of these endings. The player ascends to godhood and makes a world which has no change within it, a world without the shifting mound, a world without death itself. However, if you are mean to the voices when you approach the mirror and when they're scared of it, in the long quiet they will now make this world a living hell for you, being mean to you and, in their words, getting their blades. And guess what? In this world, change does not exist, so this will be forever. It will be the eternity that you made. A living hell, an unending nightmare. Next is the restart ending. If you take the knife, but when you meet the princess, she offers you a way to restart the cycle, and it involves you being killed by her. If you take the offer, she then takes the blade and cuts your throat, confessing her love to you, and then once you die, the cycle restarts with us starting in the woods again. A bit of a boring ending in my eyes and a bit depressing. An ending added in the pristine cut of the game, the New World ending, is basically the bad ending in a sense, I guess. You obtain it by getting all vessels that you need for the shifting mound via violent methods, either just killing them, being hostile to them, or just being very argumentative. And in the final confrontation with the shifting mound, you have to choose all the red dialogue options, which are the argument options. During this argument, you start to awaken to your godly powers, and then you fight one another as gods. This battle shatters the world created by the narrator, and now you have a world free to do with as you please. And this world has no death in it or the shifting mound in it at all. So it is kind of like the one where you kill the princess, but in a bit of a different manner. Next is the Oblivion ending, or the Just As You Once Were ending, a very interesting ending to me. It involves you never giving any vessels to the shifting mound. This is done in either chapter 2 or 3, just walking away from the cabin and never entering it and having the narrator kill you. This action itself damns the world into oblivion, with you never actually seeing what becomes of the princess after your actions. In this ending as well, in each of the 5 or 6 loops that you do, the shifting mound goes through each stage of grief in order, becoming more and more desperate as the loops go on. This is done until it becomes impossible to actually complete her, and you both remain trapped in the long quiet. And this ending can only fully be completed once you give up on existing, and you both are left incomplete, leaving the world completely broken in a way. It is a pretty cool ending, but it's kind of like a secret ending in a way, I guess, where you kind of just refuse to play the game. I always like these. It kind of reminds me of like the Far Cry 4 ending, where if you just sit at the table long enough, Pagan Min comes back. It's kind of like that one. It's not meant to be taken too seriously, as I think personally, for the message of the game, but it does show how if you just disconnect from someone, they still go through grief themselves. They still kind of have to mourn you in a way that they lost you. But it's a cool way to show that even when you don't choose to be around someone anymore, not because of death, but because of your own actions, people kind of grieve you in a way. I think it's a fun way. It's just a cool way to show that people do grieve for those that they lose, not through death, but because life gets in the way. And last but certainly not least, the happy ending, or the and what happens next ending. Entering the cabin, you ask the princess if you want to leave together. While she is hesitant, she agrees to leave with you, and she's ready to face whatever is outside with you, not as gods but as mortal beings, scared but excited at the potential life has for them. And I think this is the only ending where both characters confess their love for each other, with most of the other ones only one party confessing, and together they place their hands on the doorknob and it cuts to black. A beautiful ending, which I think is a perfect ending for this game in general. That opening sentence was not lying about this game. It is very much about love, this game. So now a man who is very inexperienced about love is now going to talk about the beauty of these endings and the message of the game, to me, which I think it was very clearly trying to portray. I want to do some analysis of the main character, the one we don't really see or learn a lot about. Now, why do we not learn a lot about them? Well, it's because it's meant to be a self-insert character, but something that I was always asking myself was, why does Bro look like that? And yes, the entire time I was playing the game, I was asking this to myself, and I was wondering why he actually took on the appearance of what he does. It's a shame that no one in the livestream could hear my questions. Now, the player character is a large, monstrous being with crow-like features, but also other features from other animals with scales and claws. But why is it a birdman? Why is it not just a generic human being like the princess? Well, let's break it down a bit, shall we? So the developers have very much stated that it is very much meant to look like a crow. So let's look into crows a bit. Crows are birds with storied histories, with a lot of meaning throughout a bunch of cultures. But the main thing that crows represent in my eyes is death. Okay, Yeah, crows are very much associated with death, and more specifically with the bubonic plague here in the UK, due to certain doctors using their appearance for reasons. But just like the princess, crows also represent transformation, adaptability, destiny, and are believed to be able to see the future. Crows are seen as both good omens and bad omens depending on who you ask, and that mirrors the player character yourself. You can either be good, bad, or anything in between. It's what you choose to be and what you choose to believe in. But that similarity in symbolism to what the princess is obviously meant to act as a hint that you and the princess were once the same being, one in the same, two sides of the same coin. Crows are also believed to be intermediaries between worlds, which would explain why the player then has the ability to be transported to different worlds after death and still remember everything from them previous worlds, because crows are believed to be able to transport to different worlds to give messages. In addition to this, the player's beast-like appearance also represents what a world without change would be like. Nothing would evolve, everything would remain primal, and nothing would grow into what they could potentially become, which is what the princess represents. People only exist because of evolution. The only reason I'm here today speaking is because of evolution. The narrator, mirroring literally the appearance of the player, is meant to show what the player represents, the narrator also represents and embodies. He embodies things like knowledge and seeing the future. He understood what the future held and he was scared of it, so he removed things from it. But the act of removing change turned him into an animal himself. The general presentation of the player character with its monster-like appearance is used in the same way as the princess. We are called the hero in chapter 1, so when we finally see ourselves, it's surprising to see what we actually look like. It's an inversion. We aren't the dashing man in silver armor on a white horse. We are kind of disturbing looking, kind of like the princess, where she's called a princess and she's said that she can destroy the world, but she just looks like a normal woman. An interesting feature that the player character has is their wings. Yes, you got wings, but you cannot fly. This links to you being an ocean that is now just a shallow creek. Your potential has been limited from what you truly are. A god, you are but a mortal man now. You do not fulfill your true potential. But do you need it? You can still walk on two legs. Do you need the wings to truly live? And making the player character a monster as well simply makes you question everything else in the game. We assumed that we were just a normal person. The only other person we saw was the princess, so we assumed that we kind of just look the same as her, just another person. But once we finally see ourselves, we now realize that not everything that we are assuming will be true. And I'm guessing if you are like me, you also assume that you were just a person. So this little change makes you rethink everything else that you have been assuming up to that point in the game. Funny bit of symbolism as well with the princess and the crow-like appearance of the player. Once you are aggressive to her or she kills you in the first chapter, she becomes more a beast. Think the witch, where she becomes more like a cat, or the beast itself, which appears to be a lion kind of animal. Cats hunt birds. It is a cool bit of symbolism to show that the player character, who is a bird, sees her as above him in the food chain, an animal that would eat a bird, a cat. It's very clear to me that the game is trying to present a message of a person's actions can lead to dramatic and drastic changes in another person or your own life, which can range from things like falling in love, or hating each other, or becoming good friends, or killing each other. There are actions that can lead to these consequences, and it happens to everyone in real life. You see this in the game depending on how you approach the princess. You two start as strangers, having never met each other. You can become either each other's worst enemies and nightmare, or you can be viewed as what I see as soulmates, two people who are so happy just to be with each other, they'll willingly spend the rest of eternity with each other. And I kind of think that's the message of the game. We often hear about people who are looking for people that they want to feel like they can belong with, or people that they feel like they can truly love, or a family for themselves. But does it matter who that person truly is? Can we find these connections in anyone? Perhaps it's less about the destination and more about a journey of learning to become them people with each other. Can we discover meaning, happiness, and most importantly love in anyone, provided we're willing to see it, nurture it, and let it flourish? At the same time, the idea of endings looms large over everyone's life. In the game itself, the narrator warns us that the world will end unless we kill the princess. But is the end always something to fear? Endings themselves give life its meaning. Without the inevitability of death, life would lose its value. We wouldn't cherish ourselves or others the way we do now. Grief itself is proof of this. Our sorrow over losing loved ones is a testament to how much we treasured our time with them. The beauty lies in the connections we make. A part of them becomes us, and their impact lingers long after they're gone. We remember those who changed us the most, for better or worse, and we always wish we could spend more time with the ones we truly love. I've learned this lesson the hard way. I often find myself wishing I spent more time with my grandparents, for example, before they passed away, or friends before they drifted out of my life, and I regret not showing someone who cared for me so much that they, I think, did love me, and I didn't show how much I cared for them, letting my inaction push them out of my life, and I've probably lost them forever. Time doesn't slow down for any of us, but we shouldn't curse first life for what we lose. Something isn't beautiful because it lasts forever. It's beautiful because it doesn't. Sometimes it's the knowledge that nothing lasts forever that teaches us to truly cherish the moments and the people we love most deeply. So use time wisely. But most importantly, the fact that time is something limited which we are unable to get back once we used it is truly what makes life so beautiful. Hello, I'm putting this in here to now tell you all that memberships are now available on my channel. At the end of each video, I used to do a sort of just message from me, but I stopped doing that, but I'll put it back in if I get any members, and I'll basically give you a shout out here at the end. But there is something else I need to say. Of course, you guys have been voting for the next video, which it seems to be Faith is winning, so I will be streaming that, and I will announce the day I'll probably be streaming that. It'll probably be multiple streams because it'll take me a couple of days probably to get through it, but I just need to work out when I can actually stream, and I don't actually know when I'm going to finish this video because I'm recording this before I'm done editing it. And hopefully this time I will not fuck up all the audio again like I did the Fear and Hunger 2 video, so let's hope it doesn't get copyright claimed 50 times by YouTube because Atlas want to fuck me with the music constantly. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, subscribe, like, whatever, don't care, do what you want. That's all from me. See you around, Crocodile.